يا رسول الله وعلى أهل بيتك المظلومين صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. As we mentioned, inshallah, we will be discussing for the remaining nights Dua Zaman Al-Ghaibah, a dua that is recommended for an individual to read in the time of Zaman Al-Ghaibah. And yesterday, very briefly, we mentioned that As-Sayyid ibn Tawus has included this ziyarah in his book under the recommended acts to be performed on the day of Friday. From within Dua Zaman Al-Ghaibah, we see that there are very extremely important ideological components that an individual needs to be aware of, an individual needs to understand. That they have responsibilities that they need to adhere to, especially when they are living in the time where their master and their Imam Al-Hujjat ibn Al-Hasan is in his major occultation. And inshallah, I want to speak about the first line in this dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. O Allah, grant me knowledge of yourself. For if you do not grant me knowledge of yourself, I will not recognize your messenger. O Allah, allow me to recognize your messenger, for if you do not grant me the knowledge of your messenger, I will not recognize your hujjah. O Allah, grant me the knowledge of your hujjah, for if you do not grant me the knowledge of your hujjah, I will stray from my religion. So we can tell that there are three components that an individual needs to understand and adhere to. And that is to know who their Lord is, to know who their messenger is. Prophethood, what is prophethood? And inshallah, in the next few nights we will discuss prophethood up until we reach imamah. What does it mean for an individual to have the knowledge of the imam of their time? Ajjalallah ta'ala farajuhu sharif. In relation to ma'rifatullah, knowing who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a very crucial and a very interesting topic. We see in history many philosophers tried to understand who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through their researches, through their logical equations. They tried to prove the existence of Allah. They tried to understand who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. However, no philosopher was able to explain to us who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly is, because they do not have the knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instilled within those that He has chosen to represent Him on earth. And this is a very important point, my brothers and sisters. The only way that we can reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through those that He created for us to be from, or He created them for us to benefit from, for us to understand that these individuals are the way to Allah. And the greatest evidence for this, my brothers and sisters, is what was mentioned in Al-Ziyara Al-Jami'a Al-Kabira for Imam Al-Hadi alayhi salam, where he describes an individual's role. If an individual wants to know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, Imam Al-Hadi presents for you a criteria, or he gives you a direction that through these individuals you reach Allah. He says, "Man arad Allah bada'a bikum." That whomever wants to reach Allah starts with the Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam. وَمَنْ وَحَّدَهُ قَبِلَ عَنْكُمْ. And if someone wants to actually believe in the Tawheed of Allah, then they start with you, the Ahlul Bayt. Why? Because if we look at other sects in society, my brothers and sisters, everyone claims to call to Allah. However, every group that claims to call to Allah has an issue with their ideology, with their aqidah. For example, some Muslims from the other side believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a hand. Some of them believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a leg. Some of them believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rides on a certain animal, and on some nights He uses this animal as a sort of vehicle to travel between the heavens. Some of them believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a leg. So He places His leg into the fire, and the fire says, enough is enough, I cannot bear this. You see, the Ahlul Bayt say that all of these stipulations that other individuals drew for their conclusion is incorrect, because whoever wants Allah starts with us, and whoever wants to display Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts our interpretation on what Tawheed is. And subhanallah, if we look around into the society today, everything that we see proves the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at yourself as an individual. Allah created me with a heart, with a liver, with limbs. He created the heart in such an intricate way. He created the ears in such a detailed way. You know, scientifically, if you were to have an issue with your ear problem, this can cause you to suffer severe forms of pain all around your body. But we can't understand this. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all of these things. And these are from the proofs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's existence. The ability that you have to hear, to see, to drink are from within the evidences that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists. So then an individual might ask, how do I gain the knowledge of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is? I want to know who Allah is. I want to be introduced to who Allah is. Through what means do I select? Through what avenues do I travel in? Do I use, for example, the mentality that certain individuals in history came and brought forth to us? For example, Al-Hallaj. He says that I found Allah in the pocket of my jubbah. Do I take Tawheed from such an individual? Or do I take Tawheed from certain philosophers who do takfir on the Ahlul Bayt's parents, for example, Abu Talib? Or do I take my Tawheed from an individual that says that Fir'aun had more ma'rifah, knowledge of who Allah was, than Musa? Do I take my religion from someone who says, or someone that believes that through their way and their philosophical equations they know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or do I take it from the family of Rasulullah, the family in which the Holy Quran was revealed in? This is the introduction, inshallah, for today. We will speak about how to know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is based on the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salati wassalam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam was once approached by Abu Hamza al-Thumali, and he began to ask Imam al-Baqir certain questions, up until Imam al-Baqir says to him, "O Abu Hamza, Ya Abu Hamza, indeed Allah is only known by the one who truly worships him. As for the one who does not know Allah, his worship is merely misguidance. If an individual prays but they do not know who they are praying to, in the end the salah that they are praying will misguide them." And this is very beautiful. Allah Ta'ala says, "O Iblis, prostrate to Adam, you will reach me." He says, why should I prostrate to someone you created from clay and you created me from fire? The Imam says, the way to worship Allah is if you know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. I know that Allah requests this form of obedience in this form of way. This is what is required from me. So then Abu Hamza said, "O my master, may I be ransom for you? What is the knowledge of Allah? What is ma'rifatullah?" So then he says, it is to believe in Allah. To first know Allah is to believe that Allah exists. To believe that I have a creator who created me and he exists. And then to believe in his messenger, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. To believe in him is a prerequisite. And then Imam al-Baqir says, and to show your allegiance to Ali ibn Abi Talib and to choose him as your leader. Allahumma salli ala. And to take the Imams of guidance and to disassociate from their enemies. And then he says, this is how Allah is known. Which means that there are 4 key criteria to knowing who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. The first one is to believe in him. The second one is to believe in his holy messenger. The third one is to believe and to take Ali ibn Abi Talib and the Imams after him as your leaders. And number 4 is to disassociate from their enemies. And very boldly the Imam says, and this is ma'rifatullah. This is a very important key criteria, my brothers and sisters. One day, there is a narration by Imamuna Abu al-Hasan alayhi salam, when he was asked about the minimum level of knowledge that is required for an individual to have about who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. You see, there are prerequisites that I need to know. I need to know who Allah is. I need to know who Rasulullah is. I need to know who the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam are. The Imam says that believing in Tawheed, the oneness of Allah, and inshallah I will explain to you in the next few points, what does it mean when we say Allah is one? When you as an individual, someone asks you, are you a monotheistic individual or not? Do you follow one Lord or not? You will say yes. He will say to you, okay, what does monotheistic mean? You might say it means Allah is one. Allah is one. There is no second to him. This is an issue to say. That there is no second to him is an issue. And inshallah I will get to that hadith very shortly. He says believing in Tawheed is to acknowledge that there is no other Lord than Him. The first level of Tawheed is there is no other Lord but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second point that I need to know in relation to Tawheed is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His essence is unique, and that He has no likeness or an equal. There is no one like Allah, and there is no one equal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the third point that the Imam says is Allah is eternal, and His existence is eternal, and it has been established, and Allah is not absent. This is the minimum required knowledge that an individual needs to have. When it comes to understanding Tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is where I need everyone to pay attention to these following words. One day, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was in the battle of Jamal, where the wicked woman waged war against the Hujjah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The proof of Allah was attacked by a woman. In this war that was taking place, my brothers and sisters, an old Bedouin, a tribal individual, comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says to him, "O Ali, do you say that your God is one?" All of the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen ran forth and said to him, "O Bedouin, this isn't the time for you to ask such a question." Amir al-Mu'mineen intervenes. He says, "No, if this isn't the time for him to ask me about Tawheed, then why are we going to war with them? It means that they have an incorrect understanding of Tawheed, therefore they are waging war on the Imam of their time." So then he says, O Bedouin, O Arab man, the statement that God is one, Allah is one, can be understood in 4 ways. He says, 2 of these ways are permissible for you to say, and 2 of these ways are impermissible. You cannot say that Allah is one using these 2 forms of evidences. As for what is permissible, for what you can say, is when someone says Allah is one, as for the one that isn't permissible, the one that you cannot say, when someone says that Allah is one, intending numerical oneness as part of counting, this is not permissible, because something that has no second cannot be part of numbers. So when we say Allah is one, we don't say Allah is one and then we say one unlike the number 2. Because if we say He is one, that means that there is a second, and if there is a second, then it's eternal. So using the evidence that Allah is one, we do not use it in a numerical sense. The second one is that the Imam alayhi salam says it is impermissible, that you cannot say, is that when someone says Allah is one, meaning that He is one of a kind. Allah is one of a kind. He says that this is not permissible, because as you are saying that He is unique amongst others that are like Him, you need to look at the detail in what Amir al-Mu'mineen says. You can't say Allah is one because He is unique. Because if He is unique, it means that there is someone like Him, however, He is better than Him. And this goes against Tawheed. As for the points that you can say when you say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, and when you say I am a monotheistic person, I need to understand and memorize the following 2 examples. To say that Allah is one and there is nothing like Him is correct as it describes Allah. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There is nothing like Him. And as for the second one, to say that Allah is unique in His essence. Not to say Allah is one of a kind, no. Allah is unique in His essence, which means that He is indivisible in existence, in intellect or imagination. So then he says this is correct and this describes Allah. When we say the name Allah, what does it mean? What does it mean to say Allah? Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam says that Allah means the one who is worshipped, whom creation is unable to comprehend His nature. This is the meaning of the name Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are very important points based on the time that I have in front of me. We have around 7 minutes. Let me give you, I was going to leave this until tomorrow, but since we have some time, let me mention this to you. One of the verses that we mentioned in the Holy Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ Allahu Samad. Say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one. We explained what one means and we explained what the name Allah means. Now comes to the word Samad. What does the word Samad mean? You see, it's important for me when I come to pray my salah, when I come to understand every action that I need to do, I know what all of these words mean. Now, there are 4 meanings to the word Samad. The first one, if you go onto your phone and you see the word Samad, there are 4 possible translations that come up. And then inshallah I will get to the hadith where Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam answers this question, or Imam al-Baqir answers this question. As-Samad means the one who is complete and perfect and self-sufficient that lacks nothing. This is one interpretation to the word As-Samad. The second one is Allah is self-sufficient, which means that upon everyone, Allah is As-Samad, upon whom all of creation depend on. He is the self-sufficient. He doesn't depend on anyone. We depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third meaning to As-Samad is the eternal refuge. The one in whom everyone turns to in times of need. And number 4, the one who is not composed of any parts or subject to division. Allah is indivisible. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam says, As-Samad means the master who is obeyed, above whom there is no one to command or forbid. Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam says, As-Samad means the one who has no partner, for whom preserving anything is not burdensome, and from whom nothing is hidden. Nothing is hidden from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One day, Wahab ibn Wahab al-Qurayshi or al-Qarashi enters upon Imam al-Sadiq. He says, I heard Imam al-Sadiq say a delegation from Palestine came to Imam al-Baqir and asked him various questions, which he answered. Then they asked him about the word As-Samad. Oh my master, what does As-Samad mean? So then Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam said, As-Samad consists of 5 letters. Alif, Lam, Sad, Mim, Dal. As-Samad consists of 5 letters. He says the alif, if you look at the word as-samad, alif, lam, sad, mim, dal. He said the letter alif, the first letter in this, it signifies the existence of Allah in niyatullah. Which means that Allah bears witness and there is no God but Him. It is only Him. In relation to the lam, the second letter, it denotes His ilahiyyah, which means that His existence belongs to Him. His ilahiyyah, His lordship belongs to Him and none other. There is no Lord that is with Him. So it denotes His divinity. He is divine. He is the only one. And then the Imam says, the alif and the lam, when you look at the word samad, the alif and the lam are joined. When you say as-samad, you say as-samad, not al-samad. In Arabic, we say alif lam al-ta'rif. Alif lam al-ta'rif means that this is introducing to you the content of the word. So then the Imam says, from within the miracles of this word, or the characteristics of this word, is that the alif and the lam are joined but do not manifest in speech or hearing. What does this mean? When you say as-samad, do you hear the alif lam? No. It says from its unique characteristics is that you don't hear it when you recite it, or you do not pronounce it when you recite it. Only in writing do you see the first two letters, alif and lam. And this shows that His divinity is subtle. When we said alif means what? In niyatullah. We said lam means ilahiyatullah. The ilahiyya. We don't see these things in front of us from day to day. They're very subtle, but they exist. So the Imam says when we say out the word as-samad, even though we don't mention alif lam, it still proves Allah Ta'ala's existence. He is still there, even if the evidence isn't in front of you, or you are not logically capable to understand it. And it means that Allah is imperceptible to senses, thoughts, or descriptions. You cannot comprehend who Allah is, how Allah looks. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ shay. There is nothing that looks like Him. In relation to the sad explains to us that Allah is sadiq. Allah is truthful. His words are true. His speeches are true. Everything He reveals is true. In relation to the letter mim, it signifies His sovereignty, His mulkullah. Everything that is in the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The letter dal points to His dawam, to His eternity. Beyond change or cessation, Allah doesn't cease existence. He creates all that exists, and all existence come into being through His creation. Imam al-Baqir then says that if I found carriers of this knowledge that Allah has bestowed upon me, I would have spread the teachings of Tawheed, of monotheism, Islam, faith and divine laws simply from the word as-samad. Everything in Islam, the Imam says, I can give you an explanation and everything from the word as-samad. هذا والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج وامنن علينا برضاه وهب لنا رأفته ورحمته ودعاءه وصلى الله على محمد وأهل بيت الطيبين.